Hello, Devlin here, and welcome to the Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. The Devlin's Pirate? I don't want to start using the. I don't know. Anyhow, I'm recording, and I'm excited because this is, every once in a while, I wouldn't say I'm a well-oiled machine, but I usually plan things ahead, and usually when I have co-hosts, just getting them into the studio sometimes, it takes a bit to get them in, but every once in a while, time schedules start working out, and then it's just like, hey, I'm going to have a co-host this week. So there was no plans for this, and that's why I'm excited about it. A young gentleman that we had here before, just a couple months ago even, and I'm glad he's back. And he, if you remember him, before I say his name, and he can start talking as my co-host today, he's a guy that does a little bit of everything. He was a movie fan, he's into music, he's a stand-up comic, and probably added a couple more things since last we talked to him. We wanted to get him back, and here he is, Luther Griggs.
Thank you for having me back again.
I'm honored. It's usually, you know, people are usually polite when, I want to come back. But you actually sounded like you wanted to come back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I always like talking and having conversations.
You can now add podcast person here, because technically I call you a co-host, so technically, you can write that on your resume on top of your other stuff. Till you get your own podcast. And if you ever did a podcast, what subject would you do? Would you do any particular one? Or?
Well, I've always wanted to do one where I just talk about movies. Like, I don't know. I feel like I don't get to talk about movies often, so having an excuse to, because I feel like I think a lot of things and feel a lot of feelings about movies that I never really get to address sometimes. So that'd be cool. But also, like, I really like Comedy Bang Bang, if you've ever listened to that, or like watch the show, where they just kind of like, they'll have a host and then they'll have like comedians on, but they always have a character. They just like pretend and do funny stuff, and each comedian will have like a character and they just do funny stuff. I like that sort of stuff, like just being goofy and weird. Since
I forgot that you're also a filmmaker, and because you did the stand-up comedy, is script comedy? What's the comedy? I can't even think what it's called. You know, like doing comedy, like with scripted comedy. Is that something that would interest you? Like
writing a film or something, or like
a sketch show. Comedy. That's what I've been trying to. So I've done improv for so long, I forget what sketch comedy is.
Yeah, I've always been interested in that. It's something that I've definitely been considering more lately, but when I do stand-up, I write all my jokes word for word and read it off of paper. Nice. Like, I'm just, like... And
you literally read it?
I do. You haven't seen me do stand-up yet.
I'm trying.
But I definitely have a certain, like, vibe that I try to go for. So I try to seem very, like, I don't know, like unenthusiastic, or just like so consumed and being nervous that I feel like reading the jokes off the paper, it makes people feel like I'm more uncomfortable. So like I'm very like, I'll write jokes like over and over and over again to make sure I have the right wording, and I try to think of it in pacing wise, and trying to like make sure like I can write down a word and be like, okay, I'll think of like 5 other words that'll be funnier if I say it this way, and so I can be picky about that. But yeah, I've always wanted to do just like, you know, sketches or like YouTube videos, just like dumb YouTube videos with my friends, or I've wanted to do like audio like sketches as well. I can't remember what I've been telling a lot of people about this. I need to look it up because I remember what it is, but my friend put this like Canadian radio show thing on my iPod when I was like really young, and it was all just like guys would do like weird sound effects, and they would react to it and play an entire scene and just do stuff like that. And that's something I've been wanting to do lately too. I feel like it's almost like more fun when you're not seen, when you're just talking, because I think the idea of people not being able to see you and trying to imagine what you're doing or what you're talking about or how you're interacting with people is kind of funny in itself. So
you'd like a game in improv called Radio Show. It's also, there's I don't know who did it, but there was a series called The Bat. And what it is you sit with a bunch of improvisers, and you lower the lights, and you're in total darkness, and you basically create a whole, like one of those old time radio shows, like science fiction or Western, and you make the sound effects and stuff. But because you do it in the dark, you do that so you can't, you're not telling people I need a sound of like a gunshot here.
Yeah.
They're basically, you're totally doing it. One of the classes I taught this, and they loved it so much they actually put it in a show because it's really awesome because you can't get cues with like not seeing the faces of people, so you're totally have to listen, and you'd probably really love doing that.
Oh yeah, for sure, I would,
because those old time radio shows are a lot of fun. And
yeah, I was featured on a podcast recently that was very like improv heavy. Like I wasn't sure if it was going to be something like this or what to expect. This was with some comedian friends, and they just like totally caught me off guard and just like tried to just throw all this stuff at me. And then like, I'm familiar with improv, and it's something that they worry about when they have people with the podcast, because they're like, oh, I don't know how people are going to react, or are they just going to go with it? And I did, but it was like very much like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, and like had to like, try and be a character and say stupid stuff and be funny. And
so you were playing a character at the time?
Well, they kind of assigned me. I shouldn't talk about it too much because they haven't released it yet, and they don't want to spoil anything. But they kind of like assigned me a character, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like,
well, see, I interview the real you because that's sometimes harder for people to be in some ways. But, no, that sounds fun. You'll have to let us know when it comes out.
I will. Yeah.
And I want to see you do stand-up. I'm trying to find, but my schedule never lines up.
Yeah,
my people never meet with your people, and then we can never. But I'd love to see it. I want to not only get to know you, but I want to. See some of your filmmaking, see, I want to hear some of your music sometimes. I know you're kind of in a transitional period with music. Now, stand-up, you had two interesting things I wanted to talk about that I really was hoping to get to, but I couldn't. One, you did stand-up at a laundromat.
Yeah.
Tell us about this experience. How did this happen?
I don't know, like, there's this laundromat by where a house where my friends used to live. One of my friends still live there, but it's called Miss G's. And it was always open really late, and when it opened, it was cool. They had like arcade machines and like, I don't know, cool vending machines with like, pop you wouldn't see normally, and it looks really cool. The floor is checkered and the walls are white, and they have like blue bubbles painted all over the place, and like dumb weird fake plants.
Very retro.
The aesthetic was really cool, but like I guess after a while, I guess maybe it was in the neighborhood and there's no attendee, and it was open really late, and it just got trashed. Like everything got smashed in the place, and like when you would go there, like barely any of the machines would work, and there'd just be like empty beer cans.
Is it still open?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Just be like empty beer cans everywhere, and just be like totally trashed all the time. And my friends and I would always talk about doing a show, like having bands play there, but I always felt like, oh, it might be too loud and it takes a long time to set that up.
Yeah.
And then my roommate got me this like karaoke machine. So it's just like a mic plugs into. It's basically just like a small speaker that a mic can plug into. And I was like, oh, I can do comedy anywhere with this. Like, there's no limit, really. So it was like, oh, we'll do it there. Because we've always been talking about trying to do something there, be it like, bands play or like play a movie there or something like that. Because like there's no supervision at all. And so I just asked some friends if they wanted to do it. We kept it really short. I think it was only like a little.
So there's no attendant there?
No.
They just leave it open?
Yeah. But the thing is, because I would have loved to keep doing it, but then they started putting up signs like, this isn't a place to hang out. I think they're having issues with people squatting in there too, like just going there and like passing out. So I think.
I'm glad we're making this place famous. This place deserves to be known about.
Yeah, it's a really cool spot. But yeah.
Do people actually do laundry in there too?
When the machines work, I assume so. I don't see people in there often, and I know like my friends who would try to do laundry, they're like, yeah, the machines would just be broken, so they would just do laundry somewhere else.
This is an amazing story. I like this because I've just gotten into the laundromat culture. I start going across the street to ours, just because they had ours closed for a couple of weeks, and I actually really find it therapeutic to go, put my Walkman on, and I'm done in about an hour and a little bit, and I love it. It gets my day day started.
I seriously.
So when I hear about the laundromat from not hell, but
oh yeah, it was cool, and it was cool because like it was basically just my friends who showed up. I think we had like between 10 and 15 people come.
But that's still kind of renegade. That's pretty awesome. And it's too bad you didn't film that, because that would have been amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people said that. But
to put that on YouTube, you and your speaker, and you're just traveling, comedy show.
I did my karaoke machine though. It records to cassette, and I did record it all the comics into a cassette, which is cool. And what I loved, because what I wanted to do is like have people just show up, and that did happen. I think with the last comedian, a woman opened the door, was like, "What's going on in here?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a comedy show. Come on in." And then she had a dog, and just like it totally like shifted the the focus of the show, and everyone's like, "There's a dog," which was pretty fun. But we rolled with it. It was fun. It was a good.
That
good time.
Is crazy. I love it. So at the other place that you did comedy recently, is you had it at somebody's house.
Yeah.
Now I thought it was your house at first, but you clarified that it wasn't.
Yeah, no.
And was that a great idea, like doing a house party kind of?
It was, and I know that I'm not the first person to do like comedy show. Like the Safety Zoo guys used to do like comedy shows at the Strange Barn and stuff. But that they can't do that anymore because I guess they just got too big and it was too loud and they got noise complaints and stuff like that. But yeah, my friends moved into a house a few months ago, and again, like as soon as I have a friend that I know lives in a house, and was like, "Can bands play there? Can we do this? Can we do that?" And they're just open to doing like so much there. And the first thing we did there was a comedy show, and it went really well. And I think people just like an excuse to like go out and party, but it's also a bonus that there was comedians, and like I would say like between like 30 and 50 people came through, which was like really crazy.
Yeah.
And my friends who lived there were really excited too, because they're like, it was the first party they'd had there since moving in, and they're like, whoa, this is so cool that we can have this many people turn out, and like all the comedians killed, like they all did really well, and everyone like told me like, this was amazing, when is this gonna happen again? I haven't done it again yet, but definitely will be soon. But that was, it was a really cool time. And then since then we had like a karaoke party for my birthday at that house, and then my friend had an art show there, my friend DJ'd, and so like we're trying to do a bunch of cool stuff in that house, hopefully. Excellent. Especially over the summer.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of which, summer is coming up. Do you have any big plans for the summer?
Not at all. Nope, not even in the slightest. I want to take a trip to Florida. My great-grandfather used to have a house, or like did have a house in Florida, and then he passed away, so like my aunt now manages it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a good excuse to go to Florida.
Sure,
like a free
why
place
not?
to stay. And I want to go to Toy Story Land so bad. Like I think that's the coolest thing ever.
That just opened, right?
I don't think it's open yet, but it's opening this summer.
Yeah, I know. I saw the sign with the Slinky Dogs. And
stuff. I know there's so many signs in Hamilton. I'm like, it's calling me.
There you go. Maybe that's...
But none of my friends want to go. They're like, what? Why would we go there? It's not. I'm like, it's a Toy Story theme park. Like,
well, I get that part. I'm not a big theme park fan, but I do like Toy Story. I think it's one of the few trilogies that are awesome. All three of them.
Yeah,
all three.
Sure.
I'm a little worried with the fourth one coming out, but I was worried about the second and the third one too, and they pulled it off, so it might happen. But no, you should have your dreams, and if Toy Story Land is your dream, you should go to it.
Yeah, if I can.
Who is your favorite Toy Story character?
Good question. Man, I feel like if I say something, I'll regret it. But I don't know.
Well, you're going to be haunted by the 17 people that listen to this? Like, that's that guy who likes Bo Peep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Slinky Dog is cool. I think Slinky Dog is pretty cool. Or Bullseye. I like Bullseye. Yeah. He's a good character. I think maybe that's who I would go with.
If you just tuned in, this is Devlin's Pirate Radio Show, and we are going deep in the Toy Story franchise here.
I always really liked the doll head with the spider legs.
Oh, yeah. That was in the first movie, right?
Yeah,
where they make all the weird little toys.
Yeah. I always was really attracted to that weird.
Yeah, I liked that he was an artist.
Mm-hmm.
He was a bully, and he hurt toys, but he was an artist, too.
Yeah,
you could
sure.
really tell.
It was funny because I've watched like all the documentaries about the making of that movie and stuff like that, and they always said like we weren't Andy, we were Sid. Like everyone who made the movie, they're like we identify more with Sid. We were the people like wrecking our toys and trying to make cool things out of it and stuff like that, which I always thought was interesting because I had friends like that too who would like rip the arm off of one toy and glue it onto another one, and I was like, what are you doing? Like this is so weird. I guess I'm more of an Andy than a Sid in that sense.
Yeah, no, I always cherished my toys. I still do. As you can see with all the toys around here, you don't see many broken ones. Mm-hmm. But if one breaks, we don't throw it away. It stays.
Yeah, for sure.
We have Christmas ornaments that have broken limbs, and if we love that ornament, it stays because it's just like an amputee ornament now. Yeah. So. We're going to talk movies in the next half because you and I can talk movies. You just showed up, and within like 5 minutes, we were already talking about movies because it's just what we do. Mm-hmm. But what were summers like growing up for you? Like, did you guys do anything special and stuff? You talked a little bit about your past, but do you remember doing...
When
you went to camp, I remember.
Yeah, we were talking about Soupies one time. I never went to like overnight camp or even like official day camp. There was just like this thing Soupies at most of the parks in my neighborhood where you just like showed up and there would be like a camp counselor person there called a Soupie, and they would just like organize games and crafts and stuff. I did a lot of that.
I like that.
Yeah, I did a lot of that in the summer, or like I would usually spend a lot of time with my dad in the summer because he would live in a different city, or I only ever saw him on weekends because of school and stuff like that.
So I would spend more time.
Yeah, I would spend a lot of time with my dad and the families he has had over the years. And then I don't know. I used to go to Virginia. Like my great uncle lives in Virginia. When I was younger, we would go there every summer, but I couldn't once I started working in the summers and stuff like that. So I couldn't go. And then other than that, like I don't know, working. That's when I started working at Valley Village. Was in the summer, I guess, and just trying to focus on staying afloat and just hanging out with my friends or playing in bands at the time. And
are you a summer person? Is like that your favorite season, or
I feel like it's different now.
It's in your top 4?
Now that I'm not in for sure. And now that I'm not in school, it kind of just seems like
I know
every day is okay. Like I can do whatever I want any day. Like so, I feel like I don't really feel much of a difference. My last
summer,
temperature
a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If it's a good summer.
Yeah. I like being able to wear shorts and like go on bike rides and go swimming and stuff like that. So I guess it's nice for sure. But I feel like now, like I've had a nice winter and a fall and spring, and so I feel like I don't know. I feel like any season is just what you make it. So I don't think that I'm excited about summer for sure.
I love the change of seasons. Mm-hmm. I would hate living in a place that there's not much of a difference.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I love the snow. I do get sick of it after a while, but the first couple snows and right through Christmas and January, I love that. Yeah. But then when it warms up, that's a wonderful feeling. I've always been a fall fan. I don't know why. To me, that's the beginning of the year. Maybe it's my school mentality, you know, like, but it just seems like a nice time because suddenly it gets cooler, and you got Halloween and the big build up to Christmas and stuff. So it's for me, that's my start of the year.
Yeah, especially now because it seems like at least this spring, or maybe even a few springs past, it just gets hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I feel like fall, it definitely like goes from hot slowly into cold, and I like wearing sweaters or like one sweater or just one jacket, not like shirt, sweater, jacket, coat, like piling up. I like the way it looks. I like wearing lots of coats. Like I have like 20 coats, but I like just being able to wear like one thing. Like sometimes I feel weird just wearing a t-shirt, so I like having like just one jacket or one sweater. So that's why I like the fall for sure.
Well, I love wearing shorts and stuff, but then I realized that I don't have enough pockets and stuff, and I'm not kind of a hoodie kind of guy. Yeah. So I'm always like, geez, I gotta put everything in my pockets, and they look big and bulky and stuff. Yeah, for sure. And usually I'm walking around with a speaker in my pocket too, because I always like to have music on hand. Yeah. And that doesn't fit. So I usually crank out my, a man bag or whatever you want to call it, just in case. Yeah. But so I look forward to all that kind of stuff and that. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite holiday and a least favorite holiday?
I don't know. Christmas is always fun.
Christmas is good. Christmas is always the go-to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't really make that big of a deal out of holidays, which is I like, I wish I did. I wish I had more fun than I do. Or
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
I asked the hard question.
I don't know. I think I don't know. Sometimes I can't really say what it is, honestly. It's funny because I'll get like so hyped up and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna plan to get like this person this gift for Christmas, or like I got like 10 Halloween costume ideas, or like I want to do all these things for these different holidays, and then it's like the next day and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't do any of that. So I don't know. I feel like I feel like maybe I'm a very like in the moment kind of person where
I get that feeling.
I'm more of a day like I usually,
Christmas just passed. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
exactly. I don't know. I usually don't know like what my schedule is for work. I don't know what I'm working the next day. Like I'm not very good at planning, which is something I need to change totally. I think it has a lot to do with like how I was talking earlier. Like I feel like I haven't really been doing much because I think I just.
But I was about to
so
say you're usually pretty busy, so I just assumed you'd be like schedule, like little charts here and there or something.
No, definitely not. I'm more of like, I asked you to hang out like a day or two ago.
Yeah, like, it's just like, send me some times. Here's my times. Oh wow, we have a match.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a very short-term person. Like I've had people who like I'll be like, hey, what are you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm busy, and then they'll just be like, you can't just ask me like hours before you want to hang out. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I just like. Because, like, I do that where the day will come and be like, oh, crap, I don't have anything planned today. And
you know what? I'm getting better at that because I'm very... since I started retail, you work different hours and stuff than everybody else, I used to work 26 years at a place where I, was just... weekdays.
Yeah.
And I was done in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all that. Then you start working nights and stuff. And then for a while there, I was working weekends. So I started getting to the point like, oh, yeah, I can actually meet some people for like a breakfast or a lunch.
Yeah.
Or a coffee in the afternoon or something. So, but I'm a planner. I like to know my schedule. So I'm not like the... I can do stuff at the last minute if it's, like sometimes I'm big with the art crawl where I'm always like, oh, it's art crawl today. I'm going to go to art crawl today,
Sure.
But usually I like to have that all planned, or somebody will say, are you going to art crawl and stuff? Yeah. But I'm getting better at that. So when people do ask me like, hey, you got some free time for a coffee? I'm like, yeah, here I could do this, this, and this. And then sometimes it works. But that's why I don't travel, because I'm a horrible traveler. I gotta have everything like packed, and what if I like my partner Mike's always like, what do you need that for? And he goes, well, you never know. Like I literally we go up to his father's cottage, and I'll make sure like I have like cottagey type clothes.
Yeah.
Then I'll always have like a nice outfit, and like, well, it's just my dad and that. What do you need that? You might meet people who might invite us to a get together, and it's never happened. Yeah. But I might need I don't pack suits and stuff. But the first time we went up there, it was crazy. I got to bring a fan. I don't know if they're gonna have a fan, and it gets hot up there. And then I got all these bags, and it's just. So I couldn't even imagine going on a faraway trip because there's just no way I could have a limit of what I could bring in. So anyhow, do you have a least favorite holiday?
Definitely not.
Like one that offends you morally.
No, I think they're all on an equal playing field, probably. Like maybe Christmas is like half a notch higher than everything else.
Yeah, I was about to say Christmas is my favorite, but I love Halloween.
Yeah.
But Christmas is becoming a bit of an event. It's like I stress about it. Like I try not to, but I shop early.
Yeah.
Because, I don't make a lot of money, and I don't buy a lot, but for my friends, I like to spoil them a little bit and stuff. Sure. So I tend to start buying stuff in like September. Like if I see a strange thing, I'll just put it aside. And that, but then it gets like, you get that, when it's all done, it's like you're back to reality. And I think that's when depressions start happening and stuff. Yeah. I'm not a big New Year's fan. I've never been. I'm starting to learn to live with it. I've never understood it. People go out and pay big bucks to go to these big parties to get drunk for 1 minute
Yeah.
That doesn't really feel like, as I said, the changing of the year for me is the fall because you feel that change from hot to cold. 11:59 to 12:01. I still feel like the same guy. It's just I went woo.
Yeah.
Had some champagne. Hugged and kissed people.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, I just like being around my friends on New Year's, for sure. I used to my band used to play at a house show on New Year's every year, which was always really fun.
Well, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then last New Year's, I went to a show just to see some bands playing, and then there's this place called Casino Art Space that's now closed, but they had because they were closing soon, so they had a New Year's party / closing thing, and they had multiple rooms set up with different DJs, and I just went there, and all my friends were there, and we were all just dancing and having a good time. It was a wicked night for sure.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I told you about we do video dance parties. I don't even know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
I have some friends over, and that actually originated on New Year's because it was put together so last minute. It was just hey, 4 people I know don't have anything to do. I used to do something called Renegade New Year's, which means if you have no plans, just come over. We'll watch movies. Yeah. We'll hang out. We'll listen to music. We'll eat food. Sweet. And then I tried to do some stuff. I'd go to people's parties, and half the time I'd be I get a little homesicky if I'm away from friends and I'm with new people. I always like meeting new people, but on New Year's I just get
I get that.
It's 12:01. When's the appropriate time to leave? So it doesn't look do I have 12:30? I think that's good. Yeah. You don't want to leave at 12:05. Yeah. Although my friends listening to this will be giggling because usually, lately we haven't had much. The last 2 years I haven't done New Year's, but when we have had the Renegade New Year's, usually 12:05. It's okay, I let everyone know we're wrapping at 12 because we're old now.
Yeah.
And sometimes we stay up talking, but usually I'm okay, I'm going to play a couple New Year's songs and then see you later. So we usually start our parties earlier because we're getting to that age, but I don't want to talk about that.
That's fine.
You young people, I live through you young people.
I stay up late even when I'm not hanging out with people. I just can't sleep. Ever.
No, you're an insomniac?
Well, I think also the fact that most days I work at either 10 or noon. So, I always wake up by 9. And I think no matter how late I stay up, it's usually enough sleep.
Well, you're still at that age where you can go on a couple of hours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You thought about it there for a minute.
Yeah. Well, then, if you think, if I stay up till, 4 in the morning, if I wake up at 9, that's, 5 hours?
Yeah.
That's enough.
Well, you know what? When I was your age, I remember going to work, and I remember staying up till 1:30 watching TV.
Yeah.
And then going to bed and getting up really early, 7 or something like that, and who cares? I remember days role-playing, we'd basically stay up all night.
Yeah.
And then friends would just lay on the floor and stuff. And then a couple of hours and I was ready to go again. And now it's if I don't get to sleep by midnight, I'm going to feel it the next morning. And I don't drink coffee, so I can't do that, energy wake up. So now you're just constantly hoping I'm going to sleep tonight. So, but yeah, you start feeling it later. It's funny when Mike and I got together, he'd go to bed early because he had to work early and I'd always stay up late.
Yeah.
Then when we moved in together, there was this mind shift and I started going to bed around 10:30 and he would stay up late.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that, it's funny. One of those Freaky Friday old Disney movie reference, or if you're talking the reboot.
Yeah.
That's still kind of old now, too. So it's weird how you just changed like that. But, right now you don't need all that much sleep. So
yeah, I guess
it catches up. Your body tells you when you need it, right?
Oh, yeah. There are some days where I'll I don't know if this ever happens to you. Sometimes I'll fall asleep at 7 and then wake up at 3 in the morning. Yeah. And it feels like I'm on a different planet. It's I fall asleep and the sun's up and my roommate's up and and then I wake up and all the lights are off and it's dark
strange,
out and my roommate's gone and I'm what is going on? Like, I felt like I was asleep for 5 minutes, but now I'm like into the next day, and it's really weird.
Yeah, sleep is so weird. Like, being the old guy, I started, like, I don't do it a lot, but once I do, sometimes I need to take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go in. But if you take too long a nap, you get that...
Yeah. You're
I'm
just
grumpy.
Tired,
I feel horrible. I want to stay in bed, but if I stay in bed, it's going to screw up my sleep later on.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just the right amount of time, it's good. And then sometimes you're just sitting there laying there. But yeah, I know all about that. How do we get on sleep issues? But that's what I love about podcasting. Yeah. It's just like, that's why I don't like to have a topic. Because if I want to talk about sleep, I'm going to talk about sleep.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we are going to talk about movies, though, so we're going to take a short break, and we will talk about whatever movies we can think of.
All right, sounds good.
We'll be right back.
Candy is delicious food, eat some every day. Oh, we ride in the rodeo, roping steers and busting broncos, and we haven't had a bite to eat since dawn. We are hungry and we're dragging, but here comes the old chuck wagon with the victuals that we long for. Bring her on!
Now, I'm the U.S. Marshal. To soft drinks, I am partial.
And this popcorn's good.
My gosh, I say it be. Me like 'em, lick 'em, ice cream, and this ice cream, very nice cream.
You buy 'em.
And you try 'em.
And you see. Now it's time for intermission, so let's all hit the trail and gather around the sweet bar where these goodies are on sale.
Welcome back. Luther and I are here on Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. And, we're going to talk movies because we as I said, you just showed up and you brought a movie that we're going to be watching after this, and we were already talking movies and stuff like that. Before we get into just random, we're going to just talk about anything because we have nothing planned today. This is literally like kamikaze. I don't know if that's an appropriate word, but off the cuff, just talking about it. But before we did, we had our first movie night a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ago. I don't know how time goes. And I wanted to know, now that you had time to filter those things, and if you totally forgot what we watched, then I know they didn't make knowing back.
Yeah.
Faster Pussycat Kill was the first one we watched.
Yeah, I really like that one.
I can tell you were enjoying that one.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch both of the movies we watched again, because it was, I think that's always a testament to a good movie, is like,
Absolutely.
if you want to watch it again. Even though there are some movies where you're like, that was really good, but I can't do that one again. But
I know that. I just showed Damien Natural Born Killers, one of my all-time favorite movies, and he liked it, but he said, I don't think I can watch that again, I watched it about 4 or 5 times. I really am the bloodthirsty one in that group. Everybody thinks it's him, but...
Yeah.
But, so you liked Faster Pussycat. This is an old Russ Meyer film for anybody who knows it. I've shown this to about 2 or 3 people, and I love watching people's reaction. Because it's kind of a bad movie, but it's really good.
It's good.
And you can see how much it's inspired so many movies in the future. Like, Tarantino had to be a fan of, the style of dialogue and just the way it was filmed.
I think you actually told me about it on the last time I was on the podcast, too. When you were
really?
like,
nice.
Oh, these are all the movies.
Well, yeah, because we talked about movies, and you kept saying, I got to remember that one. You got to remember that one.
I went home, and I remember, because I used Letterboxd, which is always a good tool to...
Which I saw your top 50 on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I got to see some of these movies, because I hadn't seen many of those, so I'll have to check some out.
Yeah, but I put it, like, a bunch of them on my watch list, which is always, like... Because sometimes I'll be like, I want to watch a movie, but I don't know what I want to watch or what I'm in the mood for, and I have a list of, like, 600-plus movies that I haven't seen yet that I want to. So.
I don't know how many movies I have. I have lots. We'll go with lots. And there are times I want to watch a movie, but there's just... I don't even know what to watch, and then I wind up watching YouTube things. Honestly, I watch, like, dogs and cats running around, because I am like... I don't know if I want a cult movie. I don't know if I want a drama. Yeah. So sometimes I have to just like schedule, this is what I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
Now, the other movie we watched together, I know we didn't talk about on the podcast because I was actually inspired by your top 50. I don't know why. It was Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Now, you enjoyed that, but the ending, I have to think about that. You said, without giving away the ending, we're not giving it away.
Yeah, I know. I can't completely remember my reaction, but I know, like, I was almost on the. I liked the ending because I was almost on the brink of like, where is this going? Like, I feel like I was kind of getting exhausted by it in a way.
Yeah.
But it was very entertaining. It looks really good. I have a huge crush on Michael Pitt, so I'm fine with that. But like,
and he looks
ending,
beautiful in that.
Oh my goodness, does he ever? But the ending, it was like. Yeah, because
it's a mind blow.
We talked about it for a while, just like different ways you can interpret it, and I like. It's unfortunate because I'm also pretty bad at remembering movies unless it like sometimes I can remember a movie beginning to finish after seeing it once, but sometimes I'm pretty bad. Like people will be like, "Oh, have you seen this?" and they'll be like, "Talk about these scenes." I'm like, "Oh wait, I don't remember that at all," but I do. Like, I remember just being like, there's so much to consider here to, like, look back on. And I think that it'll definitely be a movie that's probably better the second time around. Like, one of those, like, Sixth Sense, Fight Club kind of things where you pay attention to things.
Absolutely. And I think the music you'll really love the more you hear it because it's a great soundtrack. I'm really glad it's kind of having a Broadway, like, as I said, it was an off Broadway show. Mm-hmm. Then it became the movie, and then the movie helped make it like a mainstream Broadway show now. And I think I'd love to see how they do it on stage. Because the movie is so visual.
Yeah, it is.
And it's weird because I believe, I might be wrong, I always forget the guy's name, but the writer is also the first-time director. And for a movie, that's a pretty good first-time directorial debut, and I don't even think he's done anything since.
Yeah, it seemed, I wouldn't be surprised if that person directed music videos before, because it's very, like, you know, moving set piece, lots of extreme camera movement, and just, like, really creative ways of, like, how background changes in the characters, kind of, like, not so much choreographed dancing, but like the way they move and they block in the scene and the way the camera moves. I can't remember which song it was, but I think it's like where they're in her trailer, and isn't it like when her and Michael Pitt kiss for the first time or something like that? I can't remember, but I remember there being like camera angles from like looking down, I think.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
And I remember that was a scene that I was very much like, this is really visually interesting, like really creative.
And there was like laundry hanging up.
Yeah.
And the camera was going through like the sheets and the scarves and all the stuff. I thought it was a really, and I was totally inspired to show you that after I don't know what it was. I looked at your top 50 and I've only saw a handful of your movies. Yeah. And then I was, Hedwig. It popped in my head. I go, I have a feeling he needs to see Hedwig. I didn't think it would be one of your big films, but there was something about the movies that I was seeing that said, I think this is up his alley. And so I hope you do get to see it again.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it again. No doubt about it. I will.
So is there any movies that you've seen recently that you want to promote? Or?
I don't know. I feel like I've been in a big rewatch mode recently, like just watching movies that make me feel good. I rewatched a movie yesterday that I think is so criminally underrated, and so many people are aware of it, but don't talk about it or don't even really like it, which I think is weird because I think it's amazing, and it's Be Kind, Rewind. Have you seen that?
I have not. I know of it.
It's so, like, I don't know. I forgot how much, because I feel like I kind of get caught up in the fact that a lot of people are pretty indifferent about it, that also I'm like, oh, that's probably not that good. But every time I watch it, I'm like so blown away by it.
Those are great movies, though. They have supporters like you.
Yeah, and if you don't know much about it, the concept is like I think probably the coolest concept for a movie ever, especially being someone who likes very like DIY style filmmaking or filmmaking in general.
Yeah,
but it's like this with Mos Def and Jack Black, and Danny Glover owns a video store and Mos Def works there, and his best friend is Jack Black, who works at the junkyard around the corner, and he's like this crazy conspiracy theorist guy. And Danny Glover, they're like losing business, the building's condemned, gentrification's happening, they're trying to build a new building with condos or whatever like that, and he's like, no, I want to keep the video store here, and like trying to hold on to culture and a community. And so he goes away, and Jack Black is trying to sabotage this power plant because he thinks the government's trying to control his mind, and he gets like zapped and he becomes magnetized, and then he goes through it's because it's a VHS video store, and he accidentally wipes all of the movies off of the tapes, and then people are coming and they're like, there's no movies on here, and then there's like this woman that's trying to check on them for Danny Glover, and she's like, you better have this ready by this time, and they're like, what are we going to do? And like, well, we'll just make the movies. And so they start reshooting all of the movies in the video store, and it's directed by Michel Gondry, who did Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, and he has like an otherworldly vision. Like he's such an auteur, like crazy visual kind of guy, and the stuff he comes up with to replicate the movies that they're making is so clever and just so interesting. Like there's a scene where they're shooting Ghostbusters, and they're like, this scene has to take place at night because it has to be dramatic, and all dramatic scenes happen at night. And but they're like, but it's daytime. What are we gonna do? And then they're like, well, we can just turn the negative mode on the camera, so it switches. But they're like, oh, but our faces are negative, so they photocopy their faces. So so it's a negative other face, and they're wearing a mask of their own face while they're driving around. Or there's like a part where they're replicating 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they like hook the camera up to like a washing machine, so it spins with the washing machine, and he's like running in the distance, and like this weird set that they built. Or there's the same thing where they're doing Men in Black, and they have like a wheel, like a giant spool with like cars attached to it, like toy cars, and they're spinning it, and they flip the camera upside down, so it's like the cars driving on the ceiling, like that scene in Men in Black, and they are spinning this spool of like toy cars. And
that sounds wonderful,
and I really like it too, because like I do like filmmaking, but the idea of also like trying to support a community and like trying to resist gentrification, I think is something that is like really heavy hitting for me right now, and like living in Hamilton and having to deal with those sorts of issues. It's really cool because like by the end of it, like they really, because people get really obsessed with the movies that they're making, and they build like this really big community, and they go through a bunch of hard times, but it's like really, really good. And I think it's really underrated. I think it's like,
that's a great, like, isn't it horrible when you find a movie that you're like, why do people not like this? Is there something wrong with me, or is there something right with me that I like it? But there's got to be other people out there that... Now, I'm going to hit you with a question here. Why do you think a movie like that doesn't appeal to it? Because there's so much that sounds like it should.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Like it's like you're refilming old movies. That sounds fun. Everything you talked about sounds very entertaining.
I think it might have to do with the fact that, like, the writing isn't strong in a conventional sense. Like, it's very, like, this has to happen in order for this movie to happen. Like, the idea of him getting magnetized, and, like, just there's other sorts of scenes like that where it seems very, like, coincidental happenstance. But, I don't know. I kind of, sometimes I hate it, but sometimes I love when a movie just, like, does something stupid in order for something to happen. And it's just so, like... The idea of, like, okay, maybe they came up with the idea of, like, they have to reshoot all the movies in the video store. How is that going to happen? Yeah. What's the way to wipe all these tapes out? And the way they set it up is really cool. And, like, a lot of the actors that they have playing, like, the people in the city, they're, like, seem very non-actory, and there's scenes where it seems very improvised, and there's lots of child actors in it that are good, too, once, like, the community starts building. And it's like, I don't know, it's just, it seems, it's such a hearty movie, and it's so just like really funny and heartwarming for me, and that people just get along and like each other, and things work out in some aspects, and it's just really good. I don't know, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I know, I always try to figure out sometimes, this is my little thing, is when, like, because usually I can go to a movie and people love it, and I'll come out just thinking, yeah, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I at least can look and say, I get why people like it. But sometimes when I see a movie, well, some I get. Like, some I know instantly. Like, I'll say, I love this movie, and not many people are going to love this, you know? But it's funny, because sometimes there's just movies that I'm like, why? This seemed to, like, work on the same level as another movie, but why does this one get ignored and this one gets loved, you know? You know?
What do you think would be a good example of that?
Oh my God, that's really putting me on the spot here. Well, my go-to, I don't want to sound like I'm always putting down this movie. My go-to of a big movie that everybody seems to love, though I do meet lots of people now that kind of agree with me now, is Titanic.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
I loved your guys the
Titanic, yeah.
because I also do not like.
Yeah,
that movie.
yeah, and I know people who love it, and I know people who don't, and I have my reasons, but there are, like when we did it, we knew we were going into it with one of us not loving it as much, but I said, I will be honest, I'll sit through it and stuff. But to me, it's like people adore it as a love story, and rewatching it, I'm like, there's so many better love stories out there. See, like now a movie like The Notebook is a movie, I understand that relationship and why people adore that movie, even though it has some big flaws too. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's more romantic. I didn't just... one of the big things I hated about Titanic was the love affair.
Because it doesn't seem like they have much of a connection. It's
no.
like it seems so forced.
Right, and my biggest problem... And this is where I always, like... I don't really argue with Damien about it because he agrees with me, but I say that the Billy Zane character actually tries to work with Kate Winslet. Yeah. Like, he's trying to make this work. He's helping their family out.
Yeah.
And he's trying to be, we're on the Titanic, let's have a good time. Yeah. And it seems like as they go, they have to make him eviler. Like, he starts running on a boat with a gun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, to me, this says we don't have confidence in our relationship. Mm-hmm. That we have to make the third guy evil. We got to make people hate him.
Yeah.
Because we don't believe in our thing. A movie that, again, I liked that many people didn't was Superman Returns with Brandon Routh.
That's another movie that I think people needlessly shit on. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
And I'm bringing that up because this is a beautiful version of because I thought it was daring that they actually made it a sequel to Superman 2.
Yeah.
Forget Superman 3 and 4, which is very easy to do. And I thought they took some chances. And I can't believe, Brandon Routh did so well. But what I'm trying to get to is there's a love triangle in there with James Marsden.
Yeah.
And he's a nice guy. They never tried to make him evil.
Yeah.
You just feel, okay, she's totally in love with him.
Yeah, you see their connection, and it's almost like you feel bad for James Marsden.
Right,
because he did nothing wrong.
Right, and I believe James Marsden's the guy that kind of gets shafted in Notebook, too. So poor James Marsden. Give him a chance. He's really a nice guy. But Superman Returns did that without having to make him suddenly become an evil person. Mm-hmm. You felt bad for him, but... Unfortunately, he just fell in. And that, to me, and I don't understand why people... And I'm nice to know somebody else... Because I really liked that movie. And I was just like... I know why people didn't like it. But you know what? It saddens me that people didn't like it.
I will say that I still don't know why people don't like it. Because I remember seeing that in theaters and just always liking it. Or seeing it on TV every once in a while.
They claim it's because Superman doesn't really fight. He just lifts things. But to me, I'm going for character.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, he comes back home, Lois has gone on with her life, And I just go for the story. But I guess when you're doing action, you need more action sequences.
What are the other Superman movies? I don't know. I think the tone is very correct.
Absolutely. But, and you know what? When I went to that movie, I grew up with Christopher Reeve as my Superman. Mm-hmm. And now, don't get me wrong, I think Henry Cavill has taken the Superman character to new depths. Even if you don't like the movies, he gets the Superman lore so well, and he's at it. But for growing up, I was a little boy watching Christopher Reeve. So when I heard that this guy Brandon Routh was going in and he's going to play him, I said, I'm not good. I was cynical, right? Sitting down and I'm only here because I like the Superman. As you see, I got a Superman earring on too. I love the Superman thing. And I remember when they first showed him show up and he's in the plane and that Superman music starts playing, I remember a tear coming down my eye because I'm like, oh my God. god, they've recaptured it. But in the first two, they kind of fight supernatural things.
Yeah.
They do have, like, in the second one, it's the three prisoners from Krypton.
Yeah.
So, but I don't believe they had that a lot. They just had Lex with kryptonite.
Yeah.
So
I still didn't mind it.
I know,
I actually have a really funny story about that movie. I remember when we were seeing that in theaters, I was seeing it with my stepbrother Miles. I don't remember how old we were. He was pretty young, like maybe around like 5 or maybe like 6 maybe. But I remember we were in the theaters and he was sitting next to me, and this is so funny. And there's like a part with Clark Kent, I don't know, at the newspaper or whatever, and he just comes and like leans into me, he's like, Luther, I think that guy is Superman's brother. And I'm like, that is Superman. He's like, what? It was like so. Oh, I love that. It was so funny.
That is so, because I get driven crazy when people tell me, how come nobody can tell that's Superman? That's like, can you not just put a little bit of fantasy?
Yeah, I like the suspension of disbelief.
I said, like, he's literally just wearing glasses, just like Wonder Woman. She just wears glasses. Yeah. But I go, you know what? I like to think that maybe when they put those glasses on, that they actually they're seeing something totally different.
Yeah.
So that being said, I'm going to bring up a really questionable superhero movie. There's a great scene in that Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern.
I've never seen it.
Okay, you're probably lucky because it's not that great. But one of the best scenes in it is when he shows up, when he's got the Green Lantern mask. Yeah. And Blake Lively is like this girl, he's been brought up with him for the whole thing. Yeah. He literally shows up and starts playing I'm the Green Lantern. She looks at him and basically says, I totally know who you are. You're Hal. Yeah. And I just was loving it because I'm like, well, it's nice that they dealt with that, even though we'll never see a sequel to that again. But what's another movie that you think should get more credit than it deserves? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but this is great. I love that we just talked. Yeah. Who would have thought we just talked about Superman Returns?
Yeah.
And while you're thinking of that, there's been a lot of great superhero movies, but the scene where he gets shot and the bullet hits his eye, still one of the best scenes in a superhero movie.
Yeah, I remember that was in the trailer for it.
Yeah, that's badass.
I remember like, oh shit, this is real.
I remember going, that is just, I love that.
Imagine being shot in the eye and not blinking.
I know. Like, that freaks me out. I'm not a big fan of any eye, you see, the Clockwork Orange when they have the guy. Here I'm doing it visually. It doesn't translate for radio. Yeah, no, it freaks me out when I actually inspired this young kid that I used to teach improv to. His name's Arthur, a really great kid. And I did a sketch with Clockwork Orange, and all I did in the whole scene was I was doing this. Oh, that's nice. He didn't know what that was, so he actually went and watched the movie, came back and said, that was an amazing movie, all based on me holding my eyes open.
That's hilarious.
With my fingers, because that's one of my scenes that I always remember, like... Mm-hmm. When I watch a movie that I don't want to really see, I just like get the clips from Clockwork Orange. I'm like, I need to see this, but I don't want to see this. Mm-hmm. But,
yeah, I don't know. I wish I had my phone with me so I could check my list because I'm really bad with remembering. But I don't know. I'm trying to think. I really don't know right now. I did, even though I won't go into it too much, but just like to let you know and let people that listening this know, I watched this documentary the other day called Mommy Dead and Dearest.
Okay.
And it's best if you go into it not knowing anything. But it just came out recently.
It's a documentary.
It's a documentary.
Please, what is it about?
I can't tell you because literally...
Oh, okay. Well, you just said don't go into it. Yeah, I'm not like...
But I do, like, if anyone's hearing this, like, watch this movie. My mom just downloaded it and we watched together because it's an HBO documentary, so it might be hard to get hold of otherwise, but it's like...
Look into that.
It's really good. Good. Like, it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, if you, like... I don't know, like, there's some documentaries out there that are just, like, you get... like so wrapped up in the fact that how could this be real? Like, have you watched Making a Murderer?
No.
Oh, I do highly suggest that too.
Is that a documentary too?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, this can't be real. Like, the things that are going on, you just like you just can't even believe that they exist in the real world. And this movie, Mommy Dead and Dearest, do highly suggest, but I can't talk about it.
No, that's interesting though, because there are some movies that I tell people, like I remember somebody, a movie show I like to watch, it's called Collider Movie Talk.
Mm-hmm.
They kept mentioning a movie last year that came out called Good Times or Good Time with Robert Pattinson.
This movie's so good. Have you
Yeah,
seen
I got it for my birthday
Nice.
and I've watched it since.
Yeah.
But people said like they went to it not knowing anything about it, and it's actually better if you just go into it like
Yeah.
just be ready to be blown away, because you will be looking at Robert Pattinson in a different way.
Yeah.
And I like that because I like the Twilight movies. I'm admitting it, yes. I didn't love all of them, but I did like him in it. And but I love that he's kind of, even Kristen Stewart is kind of like redefining themselves as like taking on these indie roles and stuff, and proving that we're more than the Twilight. Of course we're going to do Twilight. It's an opportunity, right? I remember when he took the role of Twilight, he knew, I'm going to have to work to get my career back, because he goes, you got a book that describes this vampire as like the best looking guy that she had ever seen. Every girl that read that book, or guy or anybody, has a different image of what they would think of would be best looking, you know? So it's like, so obviously I'm already going to have people hating on me.
Yeah.
And I love that I think he was smart enough that he got involved in it, but he knew, I'm going to have people hating on me, because
he's done some cool stuff since too, but Good Time was so good. I think
mind blowing.
Yeah, I think the synopsis, I read it because I watched the trailer, and all I thought was it's just going to be like, oh, him and his brother try and sell drugs.
Yeah.
And then it, like, my idea of what I thought it was going to be was a lot different because of what happens to his brother right away. And, like, I do also love movies that happen in such a short span of time.
I do too.
And it's really cool. I watched it with my girlfriend, and I loved, I still think the movie is really good, but I love these moments where it's like, oh, we got to go down to the arcade, or we got to go down to the carnival. And be like, oh, they got to go to the arcade to match the aesthetic of the film because there's neon lights there. And, we got to go to the places with the cool lighting, which is cool. Like, I love that sort of stuff. Like, I love thinking of filmmakers being like, I just want to shoot like a weird fight scene in a carnival, and like thinking of like, okay, how do we put that in a movie, and like working like cool scene first and like building a story around that. Like, I love thinking about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And another thing I like about Good Time is I'm old fashioned. I still root for the hero. But when you have a movie like Good Time and you realize that the guy you're following is a bit douchey and questionable, and yet there's something endearing to this guy. Was it you I was talking about, like, two movies that I love, even though I hate the lead?
I think probably.
Yeah, it was, because you think I told you about I Shot Andy Warhol.
I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. I feel like I've had this conversation.
Yeah, okay. So just quickly, two characters, the lead characters in it. I Shot Andy Warhol. It was based on a true story. He was actually shot later in his life, and by one of his friends, who was this militant feminist lesbian who, I don't agree with anything. Not everything, but she was really hardcore. Like, I totally believe in feminism and stuff, but this was hardcore. Like, all the men should be just get rid of and stuff. But I could watch this character played by Lily Taylor. I was just mesmerized. And the other one was, I always forget it, American History X with Ed Norton.
Yeah.
Where he plays a neo-Nazi skinhead. Yeah. Again, when he's in his neo-Nazi, I don't agree with any of it, but I am so, like, wrapped up in him. It's like I could see if I was, like, losing my way or something, how I could totally be charmed into I'd follow him. It was just so amazing. So, but I wanted to get back on one. I love that you talked about movies that happen in a short time. Because Good Time is one of those movies that you feel it's almost in real time, because
they don't stop.
Yeah, right.
It just go.
And it's like movies like two movies I'm thinking of right now are Crank, which
I haven't rewatched that in a long time.
Okay.
So.
I liked Crank. I wasn't the biggest fan of Crank 2 because I really didn't think they needed one, but Crank I thought was fun. And another movie that I love to promote is Cellular with
Okay.
Chris Evans,
Yeah, I
early
know, yeah.
Captain America, Jason Statham, and Kim Basinger.
Yeah. I think
And-
I might have seen it when it came out, but I was really young.
Yeah, this is a movie that literally starts and like ends in like they do have little jumps, but
Mhm.
I love the creativity of this
Mhm.
movie about basically, you get this cell call and you're just trying to find where this woman is before she's about to be killed.
Mhm.
And I was so hot for Chris Evans. I knew he was going to be a big star one day. I
Mhm.
didn't know he'd go on to become Captain America or anything,
Yeah.
but it's such a great movie and I love promoting it. So there you go. When you mention movies that happen in short. Because sometimes, do you ever, this is stupid, but do you ever look at trilogies of movies and think, how much time really passed in that time? Like I always,
oh yeah.
like I always make a joke about Grease, how the character Rizzo has sex with Kaneki in the first week of high school.
Mhm.
Then halfway through the movie, she thinks she's pregnant.
pregnant.
Now, it's possible her and Kaneki are still having sex, but the way they filmed it, the last day of school, which is now way past 9 months, she says, I'm not pregnant and still thin. And I think, okay, does Rizzo really think she was pregnant? It's now over like 10 months.
Yeah.
I don't know how many in the school year. But I always laugh about that.
Yeah,
but
for
it's
sure.
funny when you think, oh, this is happening like it's weird when you go to a sequel and you realize it's happening right away. Like there's no time jump, I don't know. Am I the only one who thinks about that?
I do that sometimes. I don't think I think about it too much because I know, like, I'm one of those people that, I like to think of a movie as just like a place in time.
Yeah.
So like even if there is a sequel, like I don't really like. I love not knowing things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it bothers me when people are like, "Well, what happens after?" and like, there's so much left unanswered. But I always like think about movies as like, nope, this is.
And in lots of cases, I wish they'd stay that way. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Like, because I remember my thing was when I first saw the original Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
When the second one, and I'm one of the few people in the world that actually thinks the second one is better than the first.
Okay.
But the second one literally starts like in the change room after the competition in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that then he goes for the summer to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
And then it's like almost like the next year he's got the third one. And I'm like, boy, Daniel and Mr. Miyagi do a lot in that 1 year type thing. And it's just...
I do like that too, though, when things pick up. Like
I do, but I was saddened because I really liked the girl he fell for in the second one. And when he came back and they just said, oh, yeah, no, she's still there. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
The guy almost died for her. And now, he's got a new love interest. I don't know. That's just me, though. But I don't even notice it sometimes because I've seen movies and it's just like, I'll miss things and I'll see them so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love one of my favorite Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies, the original.
Yeah.
And me and Mike were watching Halloween 2, which I've seen several times, and I knew, okay, it's not as good as the original, but it's not horrible compared to some horror things. But Mike made an observation that I can't think about now because he mentioned it, and I'm glad he did, but he said the only problem I have with because that happens the same night.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen Halloween 2. So.
Okay, no spoilers here, except for this. I'll ruin the beginning. But it literally starts at the end, so it's the same night. And Jamie Lee Curtis goes to the hospital, and he's still stalking her. But the thing is the first scene, you see her neighborhood, and you see the Donald Pleasance character, and there's all these kids out trick-or-treating while they're looking for Michael Myers.
Yeah.
The whole 45 minutes of the end of Halloween, there is nobody in that neighborhood.
That's true.
Because they established that she's running around screaming.
There's nobody around.
Worst neighborhood ever, by the way. Because not one neighbor comes to look out for some girl screaming.
Yeah.
But then when the sequel starts, these kids are out trick-or-treating. It's like, what, they just wait until 10, 11 o'clock at night?
True enough.
But just weird little things like that
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So is there any movies you want to see coming up this year? Or? Even if it's an old movie that you just heard about?
Though I do think I'm in the minority for this, and every person I try to be like, oh, I'm really excited to see this. I'm excited for the new Han Solo movie. And I am showing you my Han Solo doll, young Han Solo doll I just bought a couple weeks ago. Nice. Because I know, everyone is like, this is like, all the cards are in for it to not be good. And I even was thinking, I'm like, you know what, I'm probably not going to like it, whatever. And then the trailer came out, and I'm like, I think this looks really cool. And everyone's like, oh, he doesn't look or talk like Han Solo, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, he still looks cool. He still seems cool. He seems, and I also really like that actor too.
I feel bad for this actor in a lot of ways. Alden Ehrenreich is his name, and I agree. When they said they're making a Solo movie, I was like, I don't want to see that. Mm-hmm. I love Han Solo, but he's Harrison Ford to me. And then as I heard stuff, and then there was all that production trouble that they had, total mess.
Yeah.
And then they kept not showing footage of it, and everybody was like, oh, come on, it's 4 months to the movie, and we still haven't seen. And then they've just been handling it so well, and then the first clips came, and I said, you know what? And even the first early trailers, they weren't showing him talk that much, or he'd have a voiceover, and they wouldn't show him speaking, and I go, oh, they're hiding him.
Yeah.
And then the newest trailers came, and I said, you know what? Lando feels great.
Yeah.
Chewie's going to pull it off, no problem. And I figure if he can just pull off that swagger, he's got this. But there's something about him that I root for him, and I think this looks like it's going to be a fun Star Wars movie. Just light, fun.
But at the same time, it does, I just like the aesthetic, and I think it looks very similar to Rogue One, and I really liked Rogue One. I just like, it looks dark and dirty and gross, and the clubs they go into.
And this looks like a world I've wanted to see for a long time, with bounty hunters.
The spinning train, too. I'm like, this looks cool. I'm not usually into these, big, blockbustery, action, adventure kinds of movies. I'm like, and you know what? We'll probably do another podcast, and I'll talk about how much I hated it, and I didn't like it at all, but right now I'm excited for it.
My fans out there sit there, don't let him talk about Last Jedi because Devlin's gonna lose his shit, because that was the first Star Wars movie that I really came out really not liking.
Yeah, and I unfortunately didn't listen to your episode reviewing it, but I was really upset after it too.
I was visible. I had a group of friends, and only one of them really enjoyed it, and all the rest of us were. And I was the only one who actually went to see it a second time to give it a second chance.
Yeah,
and I was just gutted because, I won't go into it, but Luke Skywalker was such a big hero for me. And even Mark Hamill was coming out saying, I don't agree with any of the choices that were made in this film because I don't see this as Luke. And I felt that this guy did not have a grasp on Luke Skywalker. And it so saddened me to the point where I didn't even want to see Solo or anything. And I'm really not looking forward to the next one because I have a feeling JJ's going to have to just come and try to
pick up the pieces.
Yes, and I don't want to see Snoke was a clone, just weird little stuff to retcon everything that they did in the right. And I don't want to see that because, as far as I'm concerned, you can't do it with Luke, and it saddens me. But now I'm actually excited for this Solo movie, and so I'm totally there with you. I get excited when I see all the little. I want to see more toys out, but I think because they haven't sold too many with The Last Jedi, they're being more cautious.
Yeah.
But I've seen the Monopoly, and I just see the characters, and I like the look. I like Han's early fashion.
Yeah, I like that new robot that looks like the robot from Power Rangers too. It looks like something from.
We won't go there, but he does sort of. Yes,
I think that's cool. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's so much about it, and I love when you hear people poo-pooing on it about, well, it doesn't look like the Millennium Falcon. Well, yeah, because Lando owns it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to look different because Han made changes to it.
Yeah,
Han makes a comment, I think, in one of the books, and I don't read books, but I heard that he says that he thinks Lando keeps it too pristine, and that's why it looks like crap when Han has it,
Well, like I said, I think I'm one of those people that just, like, I'm very about this one movie.
Yes.
Like, when I'm watching a movie, I don't really think so much about all the, moving parts or anything like that. I think, I don't know, like, I don't think I'm going to be affected by that too much. I don't know, I'm excited about it. Another movie, like, I'm not talking about, like, cool, weird movies right now, like people might expect me to, but I'm also really excited to see the new Incredibles movie, too.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
Yeah, I think The Incredibles, it might not be my favorite Pixar movie, but I think it's the best one. Like, just in terms, like, the way it's made, and I think the characters are really good, and the style is really unique. And so, like, I'm really, and like, I really like Brad Bird, even though I didn't think Tomorrowland was very good, which is a bit of a letdown, because I really like it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they do have the missteps once in a while. Yeah,
and I remember even when Disney bought Star Wars, I was like, I want Brad Bird to make Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, he was and I think I even asked him, but he turned it down. But yeah, I really like Brad Bird, and I really like the Incredibles, like, characters and the idea of it. And that's another movie that I think is picking up right as the last one.
Yeah, well, they don't have to worry about them aged as stars because they're just doing the vocal things. But I can't believe how many sequels Pixar has released, where Incredibles seem to me to be the most logical of the ones. Yeah. Like, they're doing, like, Cars sequels, they're doing even the Finding Nemo sequel, and I'm like, Incredibles seems like you could get a franchise out of this. Why have they waited so long?
I don't know. I wouldn't know for sure, but I don't know, because no one really talks about Incredibles. Incredibles doesn't seem like a tentpole Pixar movie.
But I think it was very popular when it came out.
I remember seeing a lot of stuff, but I remember when I was young, like, no one was really talking about it, or, like, kids now still don't really talk about it too much. It's not like, like Toy Story or Cars or Finding Nemo, which I think a lot of people talk about more. Like, another Brad Bird Pixar movie that everyone forgets about is Ratatouille. Like, I think Ratatouille is so good.
I think that's a wonderful movie. It's one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. I remember recommending it to this woman, and she said, I don't know if I want to see a rat cooking. And she watched it, and she called me up and said, you know what? Not only did I enjoy Ratatouille, but the visuals are so good. I've just put France and Paris on my have to go visit on a damn animated film. They did such a beautiful job of. And I said, it's a great little movie. And I think there are people that are finally showing the love for Ratatouille because it wasn't their biggest hit, but it is such a sweet movie.
I also don't really think it's a kid's movie. Like,
you know what? I think Pixar does like movies that are for adults and for kids. But I think for me, as a kid, I would not have enjoyed some of the Pixar movies. I would have been, like, bored, and I don't get bored in movies that often. Yeah. But some of them I do believe are a little over the top. Even if you might like them. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of WALL-E, but I like WALL-E. But I actually like WALL-E. I could have watched an hour and a half of him on the planet with the garbage, playing with the little cockroach and stuff.
You know what's funny? I remember I saw WALL-E in theaters twice. I really liked that movie. But I remember seeing it in theaters and watching it, and then when the score kicked in, I'm like, oh, music? This would have been so cool if it was just silent and he's just, like, wheeling around in garbage and there's no music whatsoever. And that still bugs me to this day, that, like, I think it would have so much more impact if, like, there was no music and you just hear nothing, or, like, the music that he plays on his, like, tape recorder.
No, that's a great point. You know where they lost me? Is when he kept watching the video of, I think it's The Music Man or something.
I think it's Hello Dolly.
Hello Dolly, that's it, with Michael Crawford and Barbara Streisand, I think is
possibly.
in that
I've
movie.
Never seen it, I just know it because of WALL-E.
Yeah, so you're right. They do that, right? So they've established that on TV. So when he goes off planet and they show humans and the humans are animated, that's when they lost me.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've established real live people because you used a real movie. And I was just like, and then they went from this sweet little love story to this preachy thing about how we're all going to be fat. But that's just for me. That's like, I know everybody adores Wall-E, but honestly, I could have watched that little robot just go through his daily routines, and I probably would have gave this 5 stars, as Damien accuses me of giving 5 stars all the time, which is not true. But
I remember when I was younger and it came out, I was like into that, like, oh yeah, we have to save the planet. But it's definitely not something I think about anymore. Like, I just think I love space stuff, and I love the design of the robots too. Like when they go into like the defective robot room, and there's all like the defective robots, and they all use their like defections, or I don't know what the right word is, defects. That's the word. To move this. Like they're helping each other out because like, oh, this one can shoot paint, or this one has an umbrella that's stuck, and they can all help each other out. Or like the Mo robot that cleans everything, and how he helps when they fall in the dumpster at the bottom at the end of the movie and stuff. And I don't know. I really like that sort of stuff. It was very good at world building, I think, in terms of like making robots cool characters, for sure.
Very cool. A movie that I talked about on my summer movie guide, but I don't think it's going to be a big hit because it looks like a little indie film that's going to just sneak in, that I'm actually looking forward to this summer is 2 of them. Hotel Artemis, which I talked a little bit about it. It's Jodie Foster in a hotel for criminals, and I said, I'm going to go watch the trailer after
It's a hospital.
A hospital, yes. But it's in a hotel. They have the hospital in a hotel.
Yeah.
But I went and watched the trailer because I hadn't seen it. I just said, this looks like, I thought it would be like this drama era.
Oh, yeah.
But then, have you seen the trailer?
Yeah.
It's incredible. You got to go see, after you're done listening to this podcast, check it out because it's like this action film with Dave Bautista and, forgetting his name. Damien would kick me right now. Jeff Goldblum. Yes. How can I forget Jeff Goldblum? It looks great. And the other one is one called Hot Summer Night, which is the kid from Call Me By Your Name, Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
It just looks like a coming-of-age film. And then I watched the trailer, and it's totally about this kid who's just this average kid who decides, I'm going to start selling drugs for the summer. Yeah. And it's just a wonderful trailer. And cool. I'm like, I want to see that now. Like, because I thought it was just another coming of age. Didn't he do that already? But no, this has got like all these weird characters in it and stuff. And cool. I want to check that one out too. So.
Sweet. Yeah. If it's done right, I'll definitely like it, because coming of age movies, it can be like either I really like it or I really don't like it. But
yeah, they're hit and miss. I love coming of age. Is there a style of movies or a kind of movies that you usually give a pass on, even if they could just get it right to some point?
You mean like ones I won't watch?
No, like a style of a film, like a coming of age, like, oh, it's coming of age, I'll give it a pass if it doesn't do, or it's a vampire film. I like vampires, so.
So like movies that I will like no matter what kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, like even if it's, it's crappy, you'll give it a plus because you like that subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know you're pretty open to talk about whatever, so I just wondered if there is, because some people are like, well, it had music in it, so it's a musical. Even if it's not good, I'll give it a little bit of something. Cause...
Well, they're a type of movie that I'll always be excited to watch, and every time I find out that there's one, because I feel like it was such a short period of time in like the early 2000s and the late 90s, like movies like I told you about Sugar and Spice last time I was here, or like Jawbreaker, and But I'm a Cheerleader, and what's like another, or like Welcome to the Dollhouse, like the movies that sort of have this like dumb, weird high school tone to them, where it's kind of like a heightened version of like convention high school tropes.
It's sort of surreal, but not. It's played bigger. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I really like movies set in high school where people are very and it sucks because when movies play tropes as realism, it bothers me when it seems like, oh, this is a real portrayal of high school. But when people are like, I like to think about high school movies as, oh, this is what we think high school, like I'm doing air quotes, high school is supposed to be.
Translates great on the radio.
Or like I watched this movie that I've seen a million times that I really like, or not, I like it, called Art School Confidential, and I've
heard of it,
it's
but
by
I've not seen
the
it.
same guys that did Ghost World. Have you seen Ghost World?
Yes.
And you know in Ghost World where she's taking like art school like summer classes, it's like that, but an entire movie where like this guy's an amazing artist, but everyone's so wrapped up in like their pretentious art school bullshit that they don't like. They're like, oh, this is like, you know, someone drew like a simple line drawing of a car and it's amazing, where this guy actually paints something incredible. But he goes to art school, and even when he's in high school, like just the way they play on the tropes, it's so silly and over dramatic, and it's really good. Otherwise, I don't really like the movie because it's about like this like entitled douchey guy character who like you literally know nothing about other than the fact that he's in love with this girl and super jealous of everyone she hangs out with, and then they like end up together, and it's really frustrating because I don't get it. But the way they like in this art school, and there's like the film student and like, you know, the douchebag that thinks he knows everything, or it's so funny because there's a scene where they're describing everyone in the class like, oh, this is like the vegan dude, or like the old woman who's trying to reclaim her childhood, or this person that's a suck up to the teacher, and like all these tropes. And then he goes like, a guy walks in, he's like, who's this weirdo? And it's just like this like tall blonde guy with like a polo shirt on, and he looks completely normal. And I'm like, that's so funny. Like I love the idea of like the mentality people get in when they think that they're like a creative type, and they're like, I'm this type of person or that type of person. And I think it's really funny. And John Malkovich plays like the main professor too, and he's really good in it too, like the way he talks about art, and just this like, so like he sounds like he's trying to sound so philosophical, but you know he just doesn't give a shit and doesn't think anything of anybody except himself. And it's a in that aspect I think it's really interesting. And there's also like a story about a serial killer underneath it all too, which is really cool. Not that I think that is like an amazing one people should watch, but I like that aspect of that movie a lot.
He wants to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Say interesting, but not on his top. I do like, I watch a lot of like teen drama shows, but I can always tell when it's more of a fantasized version. Like you can tell it's like, this is what we thought high school was like, rather than... So it's always refreshing when you see a high school movie that feels like, okay, this is how I kind of remember it, where, you know, or something like you, like watching a Beverly Hills 90210 or a Dawson's Creek or Gossip Girl. It's like, this is a romanticized version.
Versus something like Freaks and Geeks or like 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah.
Where it's oh, that's high school, actually.
Right, and I kind of like that. Like,
me too.
One of my favorite shows right now is Riverdale.
Okay.
Which is basically takes the Archie lore and changes it up, but it's so over dramatized that I think it's actually good. I'm a big Twin Peaks fan.
Yeah, me too.
And I've got 4 more episodes of the new one, and I can't get through it, and I cannot get through it, but we're trying. But I watch Riverdale, and I think it had to be a Twin Peaks fan because of the stylization of it, and just the way they bring darkness into it. And I know people are like, but that's not the Archie comics. And I go, you know what? I kind of like what they're doing with it. So
I watched a couple episodes, and you get a Twin Peaks vibe.
Absolutely.
I think it's very blatant. I think I've even seen people do like scene comparisons where it's like they're just like actually like almost in a way that's like, we like Twin Peaks, not like they're trying to be sneaky about it.
Well, I they just celebrated their 25th anniversary, Twin Peaks, and I read an article about how what do you call it? Even though the show, like, it was only a big hit for a little period, and then the second season didn't really do well. And as soon as they revealed the big reveal, that was it. And which I was sad, because I think they actually started going on an uphill swing again by the end of season 2.
It's because they knew it was going to end and they could do whatever they wanted.
Right. And as I said, I'm having a lot of problems with the third one. I'm trying to finish it just so I can talk about it, because I know some people who like it and I don't, because it doesn't have that feel. But
Mhm.
I love that they wrote how many shows Twin Peaks inspired.
Mhm.
So even though this movie wasn't a big hit,
Yeah.
you can see its inspiration from everything from like X-Files
Yeah.
to Desperate Housewives to Lost. Just
Mhm.
they changed the whole formula
Oh, yeah.
of like
Way-
writing great, like, because Twin Peaks was weird, but it was almost like
So
people have found, right, but they got a lot of weirdness out of it, but people found ways to like take that weirdness and make it a little bit more accessible. The only show I have ever seen that came really close, like Riverdale is more a polished version of Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
and no place. But there was a show that I highly recommend unless you've seen it already called Carnival.
Okay.
It ran
I've
2
heard of it. I've heard of
seasons,
it.
and it's basically it follows a circus, like a carnival
Mhm.
freak show, in the Depression.
Yeah.
And it has got a Twin Peaks vibe like I have never felt before. Like, even with some supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
But it basically follows 2 different stories. You follow the people in the circus, the carnival, and then you follow this really religious guy played by Clancy Brown.
Mhm.
And you follow these 2 stories, and you don't know when they're going to meet. You just get an idea that it represents good and evil, but you're not quite certain which one is the good and which is the evil.
Right.
And then at the episode where they actually like, oh, the carnival's in town, you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And
Oh, cool.
it's really, unfortunately, it didn't get past 2 seasons, but if you ever get a chance to see it,
that
it's
actually
a
sounds really
really
Isn't
interestingly dark film. And one of the little guy,
Yeah, it's
from
about the man from the other place.
Michael
is in it,
Anderson, right? The little guy.
Yeah,
that's
the
a nice way of saying
talks
the dwarf.
backwards.
Yeah, he's one of the main characters in that because he runs the carnival,
Mhm.
and he is incredible in it.
Yeah.
Where he just talked backwards. And sadly, in the new series, they turned him into a tree with what looks like a chicken, and that was totally because I think he wanted too much money.
Well, he
Because
he
he's
kinda-
really bitter
yeah,
about.
he kind of slandered David Lynch a bunch.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think
Yeah.
there was any way he was gonna come back.
You know, we were talking about The Last Jedi kind of killed my childhood a little bit. Not totally, because I still have all those other great Star Wars movies. But seeing 3rd season, when I was so excited when Twin Peaks came back, but when I heard David Lynch was directing, I got worried.
Mhm.
I love David Lynch, but his last couple movies have just been a little bit
Yeah.
out there, and I thought, this is either going to be really great, and within like 4 episodes, I'm like, this is going to be hard. It's
Yeah.
so hard for me to watch because it doesn't have any of the style of the
Yeah.
original, which
Well-
I loved. To me, the style, the music was a big part of
Mhm.
Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I haven't finished the 3rd season yet, but I did enjoy it. I think it's really good. I think the way they mess with the audience a lot, especially with the Dougie character, is
Oh,
so.
sorry.
I think it's so incredible because I just love thinking about them getting the opportunity to have like carte blanche, whatever they
Yeah,
want to do, they
yeah.
can do. But I think what makes Twin Peaks so special is that it was on ABC and that they couldn't swear and there was no nudity and the gore
Yes.
was so subdued.
In fact, the
and they
first
couldn't
time you
get too
see
weird.
nudity, you're, oh, yeah, I
Exactly.
forgot. This is on Showtime now.
Yeah,
'cause,
exactly. And because I think that's what makes it really special.
Right.
But it's funny because I think when you watch it, you can see which episode's a Mark Frost episode and which episode's a David Lynch episode
Right.
very blatantly. Because
'Cause-
like there's some episodes where it's all about Dougie being stupid with people. And
Yeah.
it's really funny and really really funny, I think. And then there's like I'm sure you're aware of some episodes that are like, what?
Yeah, what
just
did we just
happened?
see? Yeah. And I can deal with some of those. It's just, we'll have to talk. That's a whole episode there.
Maybe
but
we'll both finish it and talk about it.
yeah, I've got, like, actually, I think I'm 3 or 4, and I'm like, I'm at the point, like, nothing's going to get resolved.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to get resolved. But, I love hearing that you're a Twin Peaks fan, because that, I remember showing Mike the first time, and I didn't know how he'd take it, and he liked it, but he didn't like it as much as I did. But he said, I was never bored. And he's actually liking season 3 more than me and Corda. Me and Corda are just trying to get through every episode and finding the blessings of each episode. Because there are some great stuff, but every time we have a great episode, it's like, they're going to screw with it now.
Yeah.
They're going to screw with
Or
it now.
they'll have a band play for 15 minutes at the
Oh,
end.
yeah, I know, but you know what? I've actually been enjoying some of that music. It's just frustrating that they could be using this time
Or
to
some-
deal with some
yeah.
of the characters that I
Exactly.
want to see.
And then some, or because I remember when it was airing, I was watching it, but it's sometimes there's stuff after the bands play,
Which I
Sometimes-
did not know.
Sometimes
so.
it's in the middle of the episode, but usually it's at the end. But like sometimes you're like, is it just going to be a band playing? Like I think there's one episode where like Nine Inch Nails plays for like 20 minutes or something, and it's like
They do a whole song and it's a long one.
Yeah, I had to like skip through because I'm like I don't need to see this. Like
Yeah.
I really don't. And
well, I got frustrated because I was so excited. My favorite character was back, and it took forever for that character to show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. I won't give any spoilers. But I like what you said about how special it was on ABC
they had limits.
And they pushed those limits.
Yeah.
Because I remember there were some downright terrifying scenes in
Yes.
that first and second season that just like scenes where like even just Bob would just crawl towards the TV screen and you'd just be like,
or
I'd be
like,
watching it late at night going, oh my God, this.
I think it's in the pilot or the second episode or something, but when Ronette's walking across the train bridge,
Yeah.
and she's in like the tattered clothes,
Yeah.
I remember like, what?
And we don't worry, I'm not giving away any spoilers here. But the episode that they actually reveal who the killer is, and there's a murder that takes place, I consider still one of the most disturbing things I have ever seen on TV. Just the way that they slowed down the sound so that when the killer and the victim were both screaming, they both sounded the same. And that was unbelievably I still get chills when I think, even when I re-showed it to people, I'm like, oh, here, this is the episode, gotta hold on here. And interesting. I'm glad. Well, we even talked more past movies. We went into TV. And we have to wrap it up because we're going to go watch some movies if we still have time. And I got to also show you something too. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, of course. I always have a good time.
Then we're going to do this again for sure.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. And thanks for joining us. And we will talk to you very soon.